Ralph here. Welcome to True Power Trumpet Fitness on this wonderful Wednesday here in Connecticut. Life's good, campers. Life is good. Anyway, I'm about to go back out on a bike. I already did 30. I want to do some more. It's a beautiful day. It's probably, from what I can see going forward, the next 10 days, 2 weeks forecast. This is the last I'm going to be able to get out on the bike. It's a low 40, which is 40 degrees, which is my threshold. And so I want to make the most of it. Anyway, you saw the thumbnail. Vacchiano Me. Guys, quite a ride. Quite a ride that I am just, to this day, thrilled that I had the good fortune to take. Anyway, let me honk and we will talk about Vacchiano. Ceremony. What the hell are you doing? What mouthpiece are you playing? What the hell is that ceremony? One more thing. Ceremony. How the hell you do that? With that mouthpiece, how the hell you do that ceremony? I told you before, that was probably the biggest thing with him. He couldn't believe my low notes because he did not have great low notes. Anyway, I've done that before. Let's start here. 36 years in the Philharmonic. I think it was 32 of those playing principal trumpet. And the professor at Juilliard, Manhattan School of Music, and the Mannes College of Music is where I studied with him. At that time, he was the king. He was the king. And it didn't matter that he wasn't a lead player. It didn't matter that he wasn't a jazz player. Wynton Marsalis studied with him. Miles Davis studied with him. Alan Rubin, Lou Soloff studied with him. Along with everybody, not everybody knows that. They know about Phil Smith and they know about Bell Broyles and Armando Gotala and Tom Stevens, and the list just goes on and on. But nobody knows really that these great commercial as well as jazz players played with him well. He was the king. He was the absolute king. And the fact that he had taken me as a student, I mean, everybody was just so proud to be able to have the good fortune to study with Vacchiano. It was just a wonderful thing. Now, I told you, he's my uncle. He's an uncle on my father's side. Eileen Farrell is a cousin on my mother's side. And I got to say, what the hell happened to me, right? I mean, anyway, with that gene pool, what the heck happened to me? But anyway, when I got him, he had just recently retired from the New York Philharmonic after this glorious, glorious career. Okay? And I didn't get him at a great time. It mellowed and it got better as we got to know each other better. But the initial thing, he was very, very cold with all his students. I mean, even in the best of times, he was very tyrannical, old Italian. This is the way we do it. I'm the king. He knew it. He knew what he was doing. He'd tell anybody who would listen, I only take the top 2%. You know. Anyway, so He was quite ill, okay? And I'll get to that in a second, but that worked out wonderful for me, quite frankly. He was quite ill. His son had just died of cancer. His son's name was Ralph, which was a weird dynamic between he and I. And it was tough going. He was very, very tough. You look at him and he's, tall and handsome, and especially the older pictures, he looks like somebody's grandfather, which he was. But warm and fuzzy, not with me, and not with the guys that I was my peers at the time. My first lesson with him. Now, the Manus College of Music back there on 74th Street was this just glorious, multi-zillion-dollar old brownstone donated to the college from Manus, a guy named Manus. And even though it was an architectural, masterpiece, it didn't lend itself that great as a music school at the time. Now, in order to get a practice room, forget it. It was unbelievably hard to get a practice room. But I found out what Vacchiano was teaching. And I got there first thing in the morning and signed up 2 straight hours right next to him before my lesson. So what do? You go in the next room and you try to impress the great Vacchiano. What do? I play high notes, which is not the way to impress him. Okay, so by the time I got into my lesson, he's waiting for me because I'm right next door. He could hear every note I played. Salmon, is that you? I said, yeah. He says, you like high notes, huh? He says, what's your highest note? I said, at that time I had a good high F. I said, high F, which at the time, for an 18-year-old kid, was pretty good. It was a good high F. I said, Salmon, I can open up this window, throw out a brick. Chances are I'd hit somebody with a high F. Show you how naive I was? I got up and looked out the window. I thought there was a trumpet player out there playing high Fs. I turn around, he's got his head, shaking his head. I said, Salmon, sit down. Take out your argument book. Characteristics number 1. Salmon, you can play these 14 characteristic stays, you can do anything. I said, really? That's all there is to it? I can do that. And he says, well, can you do it in all 12 keys? What? Okay, let me hear you play number 1. Play. Okay, now play it trumpet in C. Okay? Well, what's trumpet in C? Yeah, that's how raw I was. And he said, okay, try it again, trumpet in D, but you have a C trumpet in your hands. Duh, it's the same thing. It's up a step. My mind was freaking out. My chops felt great, but he was just soundly. We got some work to do, but we got time to do it. Now, again, he was quite ill. He didn't want to dump students, so he worked it out with his protege, Mel Broyles, that Mel would take half his student load, so he could cut his student load in half without dumping people. So what we do 1 week with Vacchiano and 1 week with Mel. And that was an experience that I just cannot begin to tell you how extraordinary that was. 2 of the greatest trumpet players who ever lived. Knew me by first name, had my phone number, would call me up. Ralphie, I can't make it tomorrow. I'm hung up at the Met. Can you come over here? Just the greatest trumpet player in the world. Calling me, Ralphie? Salamone. What a thrill. What a thrill. If I couldn't play a note and got kicked out after 1 year, I would have died happy trumpet player. Just incredible. And it was kind of cool because Mel, again, suffered the slings and arrows of Vacchiano too. And he knew what us Vacchiano guys were going through every other week. So he tried to offset it with something completely different. A lot of commercial things, and it was an education that you wouldn't believe. But Vacchiano, man, he would sit there and he would go, we're doing Mahler Fifth. And he says, okay, now if you're going to do this at Bernstein, he's just going to like it this way. He says, well, Bruno Walter wouldn't stand for that, so you have to, get out. The breadth and the width of his knowledge was not to be, it's just a genius, literally a musical genius, and a mathematical genius. He actually came to New York, got a full scholarship in accounting to St. John's. And like a week before the school classes started, his friend of his says, look, there's an opening up at Juilliard. Why don't you go play for Schlossberg? He goes up, gets accepted by Schlossberg, and the rest is history. But also, genius. He learned 7 languages fluently. 7 languages. How? He got the Bible. He took an English version of the Bible and the Spanish version, the French version, whichever language he was trying to learn. You go over here. In the beginning, over here, da-da-da-da-da-da. God's made man, da-da-da. That's how we learned it. Now think about that intellect. Think about that intellect. And he couldn't. His Chinese was tough. Chinese was tough. But Russian was not. German was not great either. But just an absolute something I will have. And from what I can tell, if anybody out there knows of anybody else, my 4 guys, not necessarily in this order, Vacchiano, Broyles, John Ware, and Jared. I think I'm the only one left that has studied with all 4. That is, even if I couldn't play a note, that is something I'm very proud of. Vacchiano, I love you. I love you. And what can I say? All right, guys, eat and drink your fruits and vegetables and live your life with true power, not the fake stuff, true power. Love you all. Oh, I'm leaving a link down below of Vacchiano playing Petrushka, the Petrushka solo with Leonard Bernstein. And right next to him is Nat Prager, just a great, great trumpet player. And you can see the synergy where Nat picked up a few notes for him here and there and all this sort of stuff. It's very, very interesting. And they have pretty good shots of their chops. Now, Vacchiano, to my way of thinking, a little flat on the bottom lip, as opposed to sitting right next to Prager. You can see it. Prager's is locked in. Vacchiano's the first one to tell you Prager had better chops than him. Anyway, we'll talk, guys. Talk tomorrow. Love you all.